Welcome, everybody, to another glorious episode of the Put On Waivers NFL show. I'm Dwayne Douglas, along with our guest co-host, Ryan Holmes from the Holmes Advantage podcast and also the Raider Ramble. Ryan, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me on.
No problem. If you want to hit us up on that text line, please do so. It's 858-429-9465. And then thanks for those who are listening to us in Sag Harbor, New York, Anchorage, Alaska, Santa Clara, California. Let's see here. Virginia Beach, Butte, Montana, and Moscow, which is like interesting. In Moscow, a little bit. That's cool.
Interesting.
It's all interesting, right? Places, yeah. Interesting. Who knew Putin like the NFL? The Super Bowl just passed. We'll discuss our feelings about it real quick. For me, really quickly, is I'm not giving KC a pass on it. I think almost getting a pass on like, oh, the line was hurt. It's football. You have to have a contingency plan. It's never going to be all perfect. I understand the kind of defensive line they were going up against, Ryan, but quick passes, try to run the backup linemen usually like to run the football a little bit more, mix and match as far as play action, maybe change it, a tunnel screen, a tight end screen. You saw Brate had a pretty cool, nice, tight end screen on the other side. What are your thoughts about what KC could have done to at least make it competitive until the fourth quarter?
Yeah, it was interesting. I thought they were going to try to establish the run a little bit more early. Get into some of those RPOs, those quick hitters, in case the linebackers crashed. They didn't really do that, so they lost a big part of their offense. The concern I had watching the game was they were in five-man protections, I think, 92% of the time. It was four out of 52 pass plays where they kept an extra blocker in. So they were leaving those tackles out to dry. It was one-on-one on the edges, and they weren't holding up. Those are guards. Those guys aren't even normally tackles.
Yeah.
And they got beat. So it was interesting that Andy Reid never made an adjustment. They never kept it back into chip. They never brought a tight end into block. It was, and then Mahomes was taking such deep drops. It was, 10 plus steps on the draw, or 10 plus yards on a lot of those drops. Those guys were not going to hold up, and they never made the adjustment. So good for Tampa for continuing to bring the heat off the edge, and the defensive line got pressure.
Yeah. To me, maybe listen, like he has personal things going on as well, Andy Reid, no question about it. So we all understand that part of it, but I just thought the whole thing was just like, did they think that they were going to get 200 yards in the first quarter from Tyreek Hill again? Like Ty Bowles is not like an idiot. Like he knows football. He knows he has a talented defensive team. He's not going to sit there and let you do that. I mean, those safeties were like in somewhere in Miami. As far as they were not going to allow, if you beat them, it's fine, but you're not going to allow Tyreek Hill. They were forcing the Sammy Watkins and people like that to make plays.
It was interesting because you never saw Kansas City adjust and throw the ball short and over the middle and just take advantage underneath. And it looked like as soon as they got behind, Mahomes started pressing, and he was just looking for those deep shots. And they were in three safeties a lot of the times. And when you look at the all 22, it wasn't just two safeties deep, or they weren't playing a cover six. They legitimately had three safeties, like they were basically playing prevent defense, and Mahomes never took the underneath stuff, similar to what we saw in the second half of the Raiders game in week 5 when he lost. He just started pressing, and then he started seeing pressure that wasn't there, and he was bailing out of the pocket way too quick.
Do you feel like this is does he have to, I'm not saying scale back what would they do, but have to come up with ways to, short passes, screens, slants, something where he gets the ball out of his hands quickly. So because this is not everybody has a defensive line, nor do they have Ty Bowles or the people in the secondary to kind of execute. But the Raiders didn't have that. But so in the second half, they made it very difficult for him to do what he wanted to do. What are your thoughts about them going forward? Those one play drives are nice. I mean, they happen in Madden, but a lot of times, you have to have a long drive down the field. And when you're playing a good team, that's something that could be a problem for KC going forward.
Yeah, offensively, I think they need to invest in some offensive linemen. They need to have more depth. Most of those guys are 7th round or undrafted free agents. And I think the biggest thing they can do is go find a backup tight end that can block. They can use in certain alignments, 2 tight end personnel, and keep Kelsey detached and use him as a receiver, but then also have a 6 blocker and kind of, what the Raiders do with Waller. They got to have somebody.
At least Smith type as far as like a backup tight end, just up as a blocker. Yeah.
Just an extra guy that you can throw in there like an extra tackle. And that way, because they're never going to bring Kelsey into block. So they're basically going to be in 5-man protection unless the back stays in. But a lot of times they were in empty and the back wasn't even back there to be able to offer any sort of assistance. So I think they do need to change up the scheme just a bit. Obviously, it works well. They averaged over 30 points a game. You have Patrick Mahomes, but just something when you get into those situations that you can have an extra blocker in. But
you look at the second half of the season, those scores were not like after what we were noticing that the scores were all those games were fourth quarter games all the way throughout. It could be, it's a second year of going through a long playoff run, all that stuff like that. But the scores were scores were very close. Teams did have an opportunity to beat them later on in the season. So maybe that kind of caught up to them. And, they haven't had a great offensive line for a while, and he helped erase some of those things. He being Mahomes and Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. And in this game, it was just a little bit too much. Defensively, Kansas City.
Yeah, I think first thing they need to do is add to the pass rush. Frank Clark, other than the sack early, basically disappeared most of this season and then the rest of that game. And their secondary got a lot of credit in the playoffs. I still think they could use some upgrades at corner and then obviously at linebacker as well. So there are some places on that defense. There's some holes that need to be filled.
As far as like the salary cap goes, they paid Mahomes, they paid Jones. Those guys are occupying a big part of their salary. I think Frank Clark as well. It's the problem with you when you win, right? Like when you win, you have some salary cap issues down the road. I mean, they probably can, reduce some contracts to get that done, to get some help there, right?
Yeah, the cap's not really an issue for them until 2022 when Mahomes really kicks in. And then they'll have 4 guys that account for close to $100 million. So I would figure out that they probably want to trade out of the first round, accumulate as many, second, third, fourth round picks and build the roster with young guys that are cheap on cheap contracts around those guys. And that's what they're going to have to do. They can't go out into free agency and sign guys. They're going to have to draft outside of the first round and build the roster that way.
Yeah, so looking at the cat, so like Frank Clark is getting that. So the Honey Badger's getting 14.5. Frank Clark is getting 18.5. So and then like you said, 2022 is like the biggest year where you see that big. I'm on overthecap.com and then looking at the 2022.
And they don't have a lot of guys under contract in 2022, and they're already pushing, that number.
That's true. Yeah, they are. Yeah. So listen, they're going to have to, retool just a little bit, but obviously, with what they have, with what they have in place, they also have, the infrastructure to continue to be a good team. So we all know that. The biggest thing that I thought was laughable was seeing all the blue checkmark media talking about how they didn't have any weapons. All of a sudden, KC had no weapons. That was like, that's when I know I'm like, did you guys like not watch football at all? Like, how does the Kansas City Chiefs not have weapons? They're just getting their butt whooped. They're getting their butt whooped, and that's the biggest issue there. But like the fact that this to come on to actually tweet out that they don't have weapons, that was pretty nuts.
That was crazy. I mean, they have arguably 2 elite players in Kelsey and Hill. You have Hardeman. You have Sammy Watkins that can win underneath. You have a first-round running back that you took in Edwards-Helaire.
Who had a huge run in the game.
Yeah, they just didn't use him. What happened is the offensive line didn't give him any chance, so it didn't look like he had weapons. So the blue check marks weren't looking at it correctly. They were blaming it all on, hey, he doesn't have weapons because he can't get the ball to Hill or Kelsey. But the problem is the protection didn't hold up.
Yeah, and they could have done. They could have done a more creative job of getting those guys the football. So I guess you never know what you're gonna hear on the Dan Patrick Show this week. With Russell Wilson. So the latest saga in the NFL/NBA quarterback controversies here now, where everybody is the media push and everybody in his camp is trying to push him. I guess trying to push him out of Seattle. He basically is saying the things that you say to try to leave. I want more say I want more say. I want to be a decision maker on a football team. There's really no quarterback in the league who's doing that. I mean, exception of Brady, maybe getting, Leonard Fournette and Antonio Brown. Do you feel like this is like a real situation on Russell's end? And then we'll talk about like the team itself.
Yeah, I think Russell is trying to make some waves here. He realizes he's 32 years old. And he's hearing his coach talk about, we want to run the ball. And he's at a point now where he needs his legacy, and he needs to win some championships. And in his mind, he probably wants to let Russ cook, as they were saying. And the offensive line has not held up there for the last 3 or 4 years. And he probably wants to just drop back and throw the ball at his age and try to get as far as he can in the playoffs. And I think that he sees the way the direction the offense is going. Obviously, having to learn a new offense with another offensive coordinator, and he's probably looking around saying, hey, there's probably some better situations for me to get to continue winning. And more power to him. I mean, he's been in the league a long time. He's earned this right. I think that there are, at some point in your career, you do earn the right to kind of dictate that. I think we're there with Russell Wilson. Now, whether they're going to trade him or not, is a whole nother story. But I think he's letting it be known that he wants some say in what's going to happen over the next 6 or 7 years of his career.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see, because I want to dive into. I did have it up, but I gotta pull it back now and pull it back up now and see if I can find it. But as far as his contract situation here, like, is he? I mean, he just signed like a 4-year deal to be there for a while now. Russell Wilson.
Yeah. I want to say it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $35 million a year too. So it's similar to the Deshaun Watson contract.
Yeah. Let's see here real quick. I just want to pull that up real quick. Let's see what we got. But and
it's tough too on these quarterbacks. If you look at Prescott and Wilson and Watson, like, a lot of people say, well, why sign the contract if you don't want to be there? Well, these guys are never hitting free agency. So the only way for them to secure that coin is to sign the contract. And then if things don't go the way they want, then they make waves. So to sit there and be quiet and not sign it and be like, I don't want to be here, is never going to happen, because those teams are going to franchise those guys.
How many, I mean, like, with the whole franchise situation, like, is that something that in the next CBA, they're going to try to, I mean, the owners love that, right?
Yeah, it's for the owners. It's not for the players.
Yeah. And the owners are nowhere, the owners are never getting rid of that. They're getting rid of that.
I don't think they will, because of the leverage it allows them to have over the top, 2 or 3 guys in their roster, given whichever guy's a free agent that year. The players, if they had their way, wouldn't want it, because the guys that get slapped with the tag, they don't want that. They want the security of a 4 or 5 year deal with $60, $70, $80 million guaranteed. They don't want the 1 year, $30 million deal.
So he has a potential out after 2021. Dead cap would be $26 million. He's looking at, the cap hit is looking at like $32 million, like you said, $32 million. So, I mean, it's hard for them to I mean, that whole team can't I mean, when you and I watch that offense, like the Seahawks are always on. Like, I don't feel like it's something that is a real offense. I feel like it's Russell running around and saying, "Oh, I'll find DK. I'll find somebody deep to make a play." I don't really feel like I'm watching a real NFL offense. It's not like he's a guy who can't run a real NFL offense. I mean, you see, like, I don't feel like I'm watching something that's really a good, well-run situation.
I agree with you. When I watch the Seahawks, it's a lot of, run the ball in early downs and then let Russ on third down. A lot of what's going on is out of structure. It's outside the pocket. It's creative. And it's not, you don't see, I would say, the scheme. It's not schemed up. You're not seeing them scheme open receivers on early downs. You're not seeing a lot of play action on first down. It's literally old school, run the ball first, second down, and take a deep shot. And
they have receivers.
Yeah, so, I mean, they have Lockett and Metcalf.
Yeah, I mean, both of those guys. And Lockett, I give a lot of credit to, because he was just a guy who was a punt returner when he first came out with Kansas State, and now he put himself into a position where he's a pretty good wide receiver.
Like, he's a legit number 2, yeah.
Yeah, legit, no question about it. So I mean, it's I mean, and you sit there and watch, basically Jared Goff go there and with the Rams and they lose a playoff game at home. So it's interesting to see what's going
On
to
the
happen in
Seahawks
Seattle.
side, they don't invest on the offensive line there either. So it's not like he's out there with talented guys. It's a bunch of backups. It's a bunch of, later round picks or undrafted free agents. And I don't know if you saw the piece on DK Metcalf. He was on a reality show with Brandon Marshall and Chad Ochocinco a couple of weeks back, and they asked him, "And what happened in Seattle this year?" And he basically said teams figured out the offense. It's run on first down, run on second down, take your shot on third down, and so that was the whole offense. And teams figured it out. They took away the deep shots, and the offense stalled there down the stretch.
Let me guess. Was their offensive coordinator last name Schottenheimer?
It was.
Yeah, the one that's that can.
It sounds familiar.
It sounds familiar. That play sequence sounds very familiar to me. From Marty Schottenheimer. Rest in peace, whatever. As far as that goes. So like you mentioned securing the bag, like it's important. Like these guys cannot play. Like we can do our jobs till we're like 60, 70. They can't do their jobs when they get that age. Is there any? I just saw Trevor Bauer did that crazy deal with the Dodgers. I actually like the deal because I feel like you pay for him in his prime, and you can. It's not like a long-term situation. There's no NFL equivalent to that contractually where they can, sign a shorter deal to get big money up front, but then still keep the organization, hold them to fire a little bit so they can continue to add pieces and help the team win?
No, you can't do it because of the salary cap. In baseball, you don't have one. So teams, the bigger market teams.
The luxury tax isn't a big deal for them if you want to pay it.
It is, but it's probably only for like the teams that aren't getting close to it anyways. When you start getting up in that neighborhood, like the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, the Red Sox at some point, they're not worried about it that much.
Yeah. Let's see what happens there. Are you familiar with the term happy life, happy wife? Or happy wife?
I am. I've been married 15 years. I'm familiar with that. Yeah.
Familiar with that. So there is I do feel like this is a Sierra situation as well. I'm not sure if she loves being in the Northeast. That has been something that people have talked about too. It's a non-football part of it, but we'll see if that happens as well. What kind of haul? I mean, this would be, if you did this, it would have to be, I don't know, like, are we talking about four first? Like, are we getting nuts with it? Like, as far as that goes, like you and I both are Raider fans. I mean, what would it would take, you probably have to send Derek over there, and then it would be 4 first-round picks.
I don't know if it would cost that. First thing that would have to come back is obviously a quarterback that can win now. I don't think Pete Carroll's at a point in his life where if he's going to move off to Russell Wilson, he wants to start over. So the Raiders are in a good spot if they do want to take a guy in, and Carr kind of fits what they want to do there. Hey, run the ball in early downs, and then on third down, Carr's pretty good at completing passes and getting first downs and converting. And he can play within that offense, and he's not going to be a guy that's going to go out of structure a lot, but more of under control of what Pete Carroll probably wants to do. I would venture to say if anything, it would take Carr in at least 2 number ones. I don't think it's going to take 3, but I think if you send over Carr and 2 number ones, you might be able to get that done.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see what they do in Seattle. Everybody is freaking out in Raider Nation about the possibility of a certain wide receiver from the Pittsburgh Steelers coming over. Nobody wants Juju in silver and black.
I'm a USC guy. I don't want to spend the money or the resources. I like Juju Smith-Schuster for what he is. I don't see his fit on this offense, especially with the amount of money that he's going to command.
Is he a big slot?
Yeah, you already have Renfro. So what are you going to do with Renfro?
Yeah, I mean, he's like I don't even see him as he's not really an outside threat at all. Like, what do you like? What? No. What are you doing with that? Like, listen, it's all like rumors and all like that. But I mean, just we had him. You tried Matavius Bryant, that was strike 1. Antonio Brown was strike 2. Like, listen, the count is you got an 0-2 count here. Like, there's no reason. There's no reason to pull another one.
I think two, what they should do is if you're going to use, 4 wide receivers or kind of go into some of these formations with 2 slot receivers, or if you go trips to one side, you need 2 interior guys. You might as well use Waller and Renfro on the inside and then use Ruggs on the outside with Edwards. Like, I just don't see it. And if Juju wants 10, 12, $15 million, there's no way. No way.
No way. I mean, I look at somebody like Aguilar who's more productive than him. Like, and like as far as like, big plays and stuff like that, clutch receptions. Like I would never. I could not imagine that.
The other thing he doesn't do much for is in the red zone. He's not going to be a red zone threat on the outside. So I just, like I said, I don't see the fit. And they have a similar player in Renfro who's probably quicker and is going to win more easily on the inside. Now, Juju's a better blocker and he's more physical, but without being a red zone threat and not really having a spot in this offense, they need to just – hopefully it's the agent just using the Raiders' name to inflate his value, and hopefully there is no real interest there.
Yeah, who would be a guy you mentioned? I was watching old Crabtree stuff with the Raiders. He was such a dynamic player in the red zone for the Raiders. Carr, trust him. With everything as far as that goes. Is there a guy out there? Let's just say Nelly walks and goes to the Rams, wants to go play with Stafford, or whatever. Is there a guy who's not Allen Robinson, but like a guy who was like a little bit down that list as far as wide receivers go, who can kind of step in and kind of fill that role as the rookies get more acclimated?
Yeah, I would say, hopefully Edwards grows into that role, and you have Waller, who I'd like to see them use more. Is some fade routes in the red zone or slants, because Waller's unguardable. If you just put him out there one-on-one, you can run a slant or a fade. But if you go the free agent route, probably Kenny Galladay is a guy that comes to mind. I don't know what it's going to cost to get him. He missed a lot of time. He was injured, but he's a bigger body guy that can win on the outside and definitely win in the red zone.
And speaking of, I just got it from Bleacher Report, just for reporting that the Raiders have just cut Tyrell Williams.
Okay, yeah, we knew that was coming. So.
Yeah, that was coming. So,
ideally, Tyrell Williams could, if you want to bring him back for $2 or $3 million on a prove-it deal.
That's what I mean. Like, do you think that's sayonara, or do you think that is a way of saying, hey, if he goes around the league and says it tries to get a deal, can't get one, is the door closed on a prove-it deal with the Raiders?
I don't think it's closed, but if that was what he wanted to do, and his agent has been talking behind the scenes, and they knew that they could get more than that out on the market, then this is probably the route they would go, ask for the release. If he couldn't get more on the market and he knew that, you would probably have seen a restructure and just saying, hey, they brought him back for $3 million. But the fact that they did release him means to me that his agent thinks he can get more out on the market.
In this wide receiver class? Ooh.
You're going to have most of these guys are signing 1-year deals anyways.
Yeah, so. That's funny. I mean, that's kind of funny to me when I see that, because I don't see him getting that. But hey, I mean, listen, they got to free up money. No question about it. And he, when he did hit the field, he was a pretty good. I think the first 6 games he had touchdowns in every game, right? So after that, he just could not stay on the field. He really couldn't stay on the field. And
he had a foot injury and then tore his labrum in his shoulder in training camp. So they need bodies. They need guys that can go out there and play, though.
Yeah, 16 games. Guys who can play 16 games. Carson Wentz. So now you're hearing these things about the Bears and the Colts. I just don't see any way how the Colts just can't jump on it. Like, I just don't. In my mind, I'm looking at who's left. I don't see how the Colts can't go ahead and grab him as the option, especially with Frank Reich there. What are your thoughts about where Wentz goes, and does do people spend a lot of time trying to keep calling Seattle, keep calling Houston to see if somebody breaks?
Well, clearly, if you think you can get Wilson or Watson, you call them every day until you get to training camp. But on the Carson Wentz front, it's going to be interesting. I think Indy is where he's going to end up just because of that relationship with Frank Reich. The success he had prior to the knee injury a couple of years ago under Frank Reich's tutelage in Philadelphia. But his tape this year in 2020 was bad. Accuracy was off. In every
aspect.
Turnovers. Yeah, it was – when you watch the Eagles game this year, you're like, why is Jalen Hurts not playing? This is brutal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then in his defense, they didn't really want to run the ball with Sanders. He didn't have any weapons outside. Their whole offensive line was hurt. But mentally, it might take a year or two just for him to get right back on the field so we can start seeing some of that production that we saw 3 or 4 years ago. To me, it's a huge roll of the dice. Very easily, you could be getting the guy you saw last year, and you're not going to get the guy you saw, 2 or 3 years ago. So wherever he goes, there has to be a comfort level in what he's done previously. He's not going to go to a team that he doesn't have any affiliation with or played for a coach that was on that team at some point.
Yeah. So I mean,
and I don't think they're getting a first round pick for him. I think that's ludicrous.
I mean, I'm just hearing the stories that came out of Philadelphia. Like they would do a drill, and then he had a coach who was in between him and Peterson who would like, oh, I'm not doing that drill. Like he just did he basically was doing what he wanted to do. Like he was doing what he wanted. He basically was doing like, the old Jeff George stories where, the play would go in. We know him very well, right?
They just change it. Yeah.
He would just change it. Like there are times where Jeff George used to like draw on his hand what the play, what he wanted the play to be. Like there's like a next level arrogance with him. So if he can strip that away and actually go back to being a regular, normal, NFL quarterback, maybe he can come back to the pack. But I'm not sure what to do with if it's not Reich. If it's not Frank Reich, I don't see it. I don't see it at this point. I would do everything in my power if I was the Eagles to get that guy off your books, man.
Absolutely. And I think at the end of the day, you're probably looking at a third rounder and then a pick next year that's going to be based on his production during the season. So probably like 2 threes. And next year's 3 could go to a 2 or even a 1 based on how far the new team goes. So, I mean, if you're the Colts, are you willing to give up 2 threes? And then let's say you get to the AFC Championship game, that 3 becomes a number 1 next year. I think you're willing to do that. Yeah. I don't think you're willing to part with a first or second rounder without, production from Wentz next year. But it's going to be a conditional pick next year, I think.
You think the Saints are pretty much, you think they're like, maybe wavering, or are the Saints in that situation where they're just going to say, hey, we're going to ride with Winston. We're not going to try to jump into any other quarterback situation because as far as cap goes, they're pretty much maxed out, right?
They're looking at $100 million over the cap. They did get some relief with Drew Brees pushing, I think it was like $22 million. So he went down to the base salary, but that's going to hit their cap June 1st, an $11 million hit this year and $11 million hit next year. So, no, they're going to have to ride with Hill, and hopefully if they can get Winston back, they might not even be able to afford Winston on like a 1 year, $8 to $10 million deal. So Winston, I think the Saints are in trouble. I've looked through their numbers on the cap. There's not a lot of guys with no dead money that they can just move on and create room. Yeah. They've been kicking the can down the road for a long time, and I think it's about to hit the fan for them.
Yeah, they're trying to grab a championship, that second championship with Peyton and Drew Brees. It just didn't happen for him. So we'll take it to see what happens there. So I guess Matt Mayoko out there up there in San Fran was talking about they might pursue. Obviously they're going to try to pursue Watson in San Francisco. Even though he should have probably drafted him the first time, right? Didn't he have an opportunity to draft him the first time in San Francisco when he was there?
I believe he did.
Maybe he did, yeah.
I think they went. I want to say that's the Solomon Thomas draft.
Yeah, I think they all. Then they also like. I remember all these Niner fans were going nuts because they were watching the Super Bowl, saying we could have had either one of these quarterbacks, because the first phone call was to like he boyhood team. He loved the Niners. I mean, that's where he would have, even though he and Giselle wanted to stay on the East Coast, but that's the one team out west he was willing to go to. So as neither here nor there. If they actually cave in Houston, they finally say, hey, we'll trade him. And they say Bosa has to be in that deal. What are your thoughts?
If I'm the 49ers and I can get Watson, I would put Bosa in the deal. I would take two. So instead of 4 number ones, maybe it's Bosa, a 1 and a 3. I don't know if I'm not giving 3 number ones in Bosa. I probably don't want to give 2 number ones in Bosa unless they're taking Garoppolo off my hands. But yeah, I would include Nick Bosa. He's an elite pass rusher, but it's much harder to find that elite quarterback.
Yeah, you can't. I mean, like, I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to diminish pass rush because Lord knows there's a certain team in Las Vegas who could use one. But you know, as far as like, you know, he goes, I mean, you cannot let Nick Bosa block you from getting Watson if he's available.
No.
Like
I mean,
you just can't.
Imagine Watson in that scheme though with Shanahan, with all the boot action, all the rollouts they do, all the play action.
The platform, the platform's always clean there too. So,
and that's kind of the offense that would fit perfectly with the skill set Watson has. So they're going to take deep shots off the play action. They're going to get him on the move a lot. He can get outside the pocket. He's not going to be stationary. It's not going to be standing there where the rush can get to him. So, I mean, if you put Shanahan and Watson together for, 5 to 10 years, how many championships do they win? Maybe 2. Like,
definitely
I think
in the mix.
Yeah. They're in the mix.
In the mix. I mean, and I think also, I mean, that could be one of the reasons why he wants. I know Saleh is a guy he wants to play with as well. That could be a situation with that team as well. Like, I mean, hey, like, you get Saleh. Saleh's his offensive coordinator is from San Francisco, from Kyle Shanahan's system and everything like that. That'd be the perfect match. I mean, the perfect match for them to get those things going there. As far as that goes.
If you go back to the Niners, they still have a running game. It doesn't matter who's in the backfield. You have Kittle, you have Ayuk, and you have Deebo Samuel. So you have weapons there. And
they have opportunity to draft another tight end if they wanted to, because Kittle does get hurt a lot as well. So no question about that. The Jets are in the Jets dilemma. Do they, go ahead and try to solidify that position at quarterback with a veteran, or do they ride with Sam Darnold? I mean, I think you pursue it. And if it doesn't come to fruition, they have the draft capital to really solidify the rest of that roster. And then you just keep building that roster up until you hope that Sam Darnold on that rookie contract does well, or, you make a move later on for somebody else. But I mean, I do think the Jets are, in a team that should be, I'm not sure if the phone calls are being made, but they really, if you have one of those stars who wants to come, it sounds like, Wilson wants to come to the East Coast. It sounds like, Watson would play for Saleh in a heartbeat, and waive his no trade clause. What are your thoughts about what the Jets should do?
If I'm the Jets, I'm taking a quarterback at number 2. I'm resetting that rookie contract for 5 more years. That gives me 5 years to build around them. They basically have 9 picks in the top 3 rounds the next 2 years. And I'm going to move Darnold for whatever draft picks I can get. The build around Darnold theory is good, except for the fact that next year he's going to count $25 million against the salary cap when you pick up the 5th-year option. So you're basically getting him for 1 year on his rookie contract. I would much rather reset. If you have a similar grade on Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, whoever it is, to what you had on Darnold coming out, and this new regime isn't tied to Darnold.
No attachment.
They didn't draft him.
No attachment.
The GM didn't draft him. The coaches didn't draft him.
Yep.
And I mean, the other side of it is too, if you keep Darnold, you trade down from 2 and get even more capital, but they have plenty of draft picks to rebuild this roster with young talent. I think that you go the route of the rookie quarterback. They have $60 or $70 million in cap room. Go out and get some weapons for him, get some protection, and build those lines. Build the offensive and defensive line over this draft, and then next year, after you have, let's say it's Zach Wilson for a year, go out and get the weapons, because they still have 2 number 1s next year, and as well as I think two 3s next year. So I would move on from Darnold. No way am I paying him $25 million next year when I can go get a guy at the top of the draft, because there's no guarantee next year they're going to be in a spot, even with 2 number 1s, where they're going to be able to get a top 5 pick to pick a quarterback.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of quarterback movement, possibly in free agency and then also in the draft. No question about it as far as that goes. Did you see the Al Davis documentary?
I did.
Okay. What were your? We lived through a lot of it, so maybe on the. I don't remember the Roselle stuff too like a lot of it, but like I do remember a lot of stuff with Al Davis and going in that route. What were your thoughts about that documentary?
My honest thoughts, I was really hyped for it. I wanted to see it. And then after watching it, I didn't really learn anything I didn't already know. And it was kind of more just, I didn't really like the deep fake they put on Rozelle. And I thought it was just creepy watching Al Davis and Rozelle have conversations from words that we're just guessing they would have said.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought they'd play a little bit more into the move to Vegas and kind of what happened in the LA situation. But overall, it was good. There was probably a lot of fans that had no idea what was going on in the early to mid to late 80s between the move from Oakland to LA and then back to Oakland and then the whole Irwindale situation. I just wish they would have got it down at Hollywood Park and allowed the Raiders to be the only team there. They didn't really talk much about that, but that's what Al really wanted, was that stadium in Hollywood Park where they would be by themselves, but the NFL mandated that they have a second team, and Al didn't want to do that.
So in the Ice Cube, do you remember seeing the Ice Cube documentary on the Raiders?
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so when he talked about that, I remember him talking about they had a chance to stay in Los Angeles, and that was a chance, but he never talked about, hey, the league was saying you have to bring another squad with you during that. He really didn't want to do that part of it. So that's when he just said, hey, I'm going back to Oakland. I didn't know the whole deal about, the $10 million that he ended up taking from the small city. I didn't know that. I know that part I didn't know as far as that goes. But that was just a dumb political deal that you can't do a deal like that. That was stupid.
There's no guarantees. I'm actually later today, I'm going to drive right by that rock quarry in Irwindale on my way. I'm going to San Bernardino later this afternoon, so I'm going to drive right by it, and it's kind of, I don't know how
the whole still,
it's kind of in a weird area.
The hole's still there?
It's still there, yeah.
Oh my God, that is unbelievable. Unbelievable. I think do you feel like there is a side of the NFL that is just like CIA, FBI type, like undercover stuff? Like as far as like them picking up the phone after the Immaculate Reception, the way that starts went out. I mean, like that's just like, I mean, I know that's like the conspiracy theory that all Raider fans have, but do you find that was odd? You think it was just a coincidence? Do you feel like it's not just the Raiders, it's just like any big controversial call, if they don't know how to handle it, whether it was instant replay or not, because back then it wasn't instant replay. You think thought about that part of it?
I thought that was odd, definitely in the mid 70s when that happened, when there was no instant replay. So, there was no real call right away on the field. They kind of went over, someone called someone and said something kind of similar to the tuck rule in New England, when we waited and waited and waited and waited to find out the explanation of what was going on. Is there some conspiracy theory? I think there's a little bit. I think not to the extent where it happens all the time, but I do think there are some biases. I mean, these are even the refs, they're human, so they do have certain biases that come in. The league clearly has some. Obviously Raider fans are biased; they want everything to go for their team. But I do think there is a little bit of truth to some of that that goes on, and just not to call out the refs, but I was amazed at the number of penalties that went against Kansas City in the first half of that game. When you look at it, I think Tampa Bay in the entire playoffs in 4 games got called for 9 penalties.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you play 4 playoff games and only commit 9 penalties? I don't see how that. And then just kind of, just watching that game, they all throughout the playoffs, and it's typical every year, the DBs get away with holding, illegal contact, all kinds of stuff down the field. And then all of a sudden in the first half of the Super Bowl, they're calling it against one team and not the other. Yeah, I haven't looked at the all 22, but I'm sure I can find plenty of incidents where Tampa Bay was doing similar stuff down the field and they weren't called for it. And I didn't have a dog or a horse in the race. It didn't matter to me who won and who didn't. I just thought that was odd that some of the calls that went against the Chiefs.
No question about it. And then also on the pass interference play that ended the Tampa Bay Green Bay game, the holding on the chokehold that was going on by the offensive lineman, that could have been offsetting, if anything, or something. I mean, that was horrible as far as that goes. I think the one thing about it is the draft class of '83, all those big quarterbacks. That's the time where, didn't Al kind of, because he was in that legal battle. I remember when they did the documentary 30 for 30 on that, Al was kind of MIA and doing all the legal stuff, and he missed out on what could have been a transcendent quarterback in that draft for his team.
Yeah, that was going on in 1983, and that was the Elway, Marino. There was in Blackledge. There's I think there was 5 total. Ken O'Brien maybe. But yeah, that was
Ken O'Brien would have been better than anybody we had during that time. Oh my god.
Yeah, and I don't remember. I think it was that year. I want to say the Raiders had a trade through that 1983 ESPN 30 for 30. They had a trade. I want to say with Chicago to move up and get a quarterback in that draft. And the league nixed it. It just came out of nowhere. Both teams agreed to it, and the league wouldn't process it. There was something going on, but yeah, that would have been interesting to see Elway or even Dan Marino in a Raiders uniform.
Dan Marino is, like I said, man. If Dan Marino played right now, I would be having with the career he had. The people were telling me that he stunk because he didn't win a Super Bowl. But as far as that goes, I mean, and I love that. I love Dan Marino. I love me some Dan Marino. He could sling it just like anybody else. Anybody else in the league as far as that goes. You mentioned the Tuck rule real quick. I remember the Greg Beekert story. You heard about that, Greg, when he said that somebody asked him, what's going on? It was a fumble. We have the ball. What's the problem? And he was like, the league is figuring out a way how to fuck us.
Sounds about right.
Sounds about right.
I don't want to relive that day. There are some pieces of furniture that ended up outside of my house in the driveway.
That was hard.
Never made it back in one piece, but that was a very bad day.
Yeah, living in New England with that we're living in New England and being snowed in completely and just like having to see and that was the beginning. So they've been bad forever. So it was hard for me to see them be good, like anything. The damn Patriots. So we'll see where that goes. So was this championship the final blank you to Belichick from Brady and
I think Brady's coming back for at least another year. We'll see if he can repeat. But I think Brady really enjoyed this one more than he enjoyed. I'd say all of them in New England, except for probably his first one. You could tell this one meant a lot to him to get out of that shadow and win it without Belichick.
Yeah, he was lit. Literally lit. Like he was yesterday. That was pretty funny. That was funny footage of him walking around like a college co-ed, just drunk everywhere.
Then he threw the Lombardi across the water. I'm glad the guy caught it.
Jeez, that was crazy. Well, I mean, yeah, it's Brady. They probably had another one ready for him right on the boat. No one,
just buy another one.
Just buy another one as far as that goes. Anything else before we head out?
No, that's good. I think we covered a lot of the topics that are going on right now in the league. I would say the maybe Patrick Peterson, just real quick, where he might end up. He could definitely be someone I think the Raiders are interested in. He's only going to be, I want to say 30 or 31. He's got a couple more years left. He's an elite outside corner. They did go all in last year on Byron Jones. They didn't get him, so I think they're still in the market for a corner.
And Slay, right? They went after Slay big time too, right?
And if you asked me if I had to choose between Sherman and Peterson, I would take Peterson at this point in his career. Sherman knows the system, but to me, he's a little more injury prone. He doesn't quite have the foot speed. He'd be a good guy to have in the locker room around some of these younger DBs and kind of teach the system. I think Peterson's a better player. So
is he going to be? Is he more? He can do it all as far as that goes. He's off coverage. He's press man. He can play any of that stuff.
Yeah, he'd be a good fit in the cover 3 system too.
Yeah, perfect as far as that goes. Well, listen, I know Dame Lillard sent him out a tweet, tell him to come. So hopefully he can be the assistant GM for the Raiders as far as that goes. Listen. Ryan, thank you for joining us again. To enjoy your drive by the crater.
I will.
You take care.
All right. Have a good one.
No problem.